Shai Gilgeous-Alexander is putting the NBA on notice early in the 2022-23 season, as he's seemingly caught fire and sustained it so far, becoming one of the league's premier young scorers, as well as one of the most clutch players in the league, averaging 31 points and almost 6 assists a game, as well as improving his defensive stats and impact. If this hot start is sustained, we could be witnessing the birth of a new superstar, as one thing is for certain. With the amount of buzzer beaters Shai has hit so far in his fairly short career, he's definitely not a player to shy away from taking and making the big shot when the pressure is on. Despite his somewhat rapid come up and a very successful start to the season, Shai still remains one of the league's most slept on stars. And this is for sure partly to do with the fact that he's on a team that's been almost blatantly tanking for the past few years, as well as the fact that he's been pretty unlucky with injuries in the recent past. This is all about to change, as it's almost certain that if Shai keeps this up, his name will likely be flashing on those TV screens during primetime a lot for the coming years. Before Shai was hitting buzzer beater after buzzer beater, he was just a young kid from Toronto, growing up watching the Bosch-era Raptors in the nosebleeds. However, it wasn't until he moved a few hours away to Hamilton, Ontario that he began to take basketball seriously, eventually finding himself in an elite basketball program called UPlay Canada. Shai at first wasn't the most talented. However, according to the director of UPlay, Dwayne Washington, Shai had a hunger for learning about the game, spending hours watching film and analyzing the game, especially how to perfect the pick and roll. Washington notes that Shai was extremely driven and stood out from his peers, as he didn't care about being cool or flashy. He cared about improving by any means possible. This led to Shai developing a, quote, more cerebral approach to basketball. Shai also still works with Washington to this day. This hunger to improve eventually led him to move to the States for his junior and senior year of high school, attending Hamilton Heights Christian Academy in Chattanooga, Tennessee, averaging 18.4 points, 4.4 rebounds, and 4 assists through his senior year, which isn't exactly the most insane we've seen for an NBA player in high school, but is still very good. This, however, makes a lot of sense in Shai's timeline, as developing basketball IQ is something that can take a lot of time, and generally needs more development to translate to success on the court than, say, a gifted athlete who can dunk over anyone in high school. The thing about improving understanding of the game, however, is that there are really no limits on how high you can bring your understanding and ability to outwit your opponent, but there is a limit to how fast you can go or how high you can jump. This is essentially Shai's outlook on basketball, with him telling Sportsnet in an article, "You're not always going to be the strongest, the fastest, jump the highest, shoot the best, but mentally, you can work on that." This cerebral approach translated to college very well, into his only season playing at the University of Kentucky, as against the improved level of competition, he averaged similar stats to his senior year in high school, minus a few points per game. He managed to perform well enough in college to grab the attention of NBA scouts, who saw the potential in this tall point guard with a smooth game, becoming a predicted lottery pick fairly quickly. However, he was still slept on in our book, with the general consensus at the time being that Shai, while having good basketball IQ and skills, may not have been explosive enough of an athlete to be a truly top-level player. Combine this with Shai being in one of the most stacked draft classes of recent history, with players like Luka Doncic, Trae Young, and more, and it becomes clearer why he was slightly slept on. Despite these concerns, Shai declared for the 2018 draft, knowing in full that while his skills might not be on the level of some of the guys in his class at the time, he could use his best assets, his mind and dedication to hard work, to put him ahead of a lot of the other guys given time.
Shai was drafted in 2018 with the 11th overall pick by the Charlotte Hornets, but was then involved in a draft day trade with the Clippers for Miles Bridges, who was selected with the 12th pick, along with the Clippers sending the Hornets 2 future second-round picks. This trade was the best case scenario though in SGA's eyes, as he'd stated on draft night that he was excited to go to the Clippers as they didn't have an alpha dog point guard that could lead the team, which is something that he brings to the table. Whereas the Hornets were being led by Kemba at the time, which would most likely diminish Shai's usage. The Clippers also snagged up Jerome Robinson with the 13th pick, and it seemed that the Clippers had their future backcourt locked up, with Shai even saying he was excited to be a part of the team around players like Pat Bev, who he had mentioned as one of the players he had watched while preparing for the NBA, as well as being Chris Paul's former team, which was another player SGA had spent hours watching. But after that team had a mediocre season, the Clippers had been given an offer that seemed too good to turn down. After Kawhi and the Raptors had taken down the Warriors and won the 2019 championship, the Finals MVP Kawhi was finally ready to come back home to California. The rumors were swirling around that the teams in the mix were the Raptors, Lakers, and the Clippers. But as the offseason slowly dragged on, it had seemed that Kawhi had narrowed his decision down between the Raps and the Lakers. But then suddenly, out of nowhere, on July 6th, Chris Haynes was the first to drop the bombshell of a tweet, announcing that Kawhi had notified the Raptors and the Lakers that he intended to sign with the Clippers. And then minutes later, Woj sent out another tweet letting everyone know there was a caveat of Kawhi's signing, as he had requested the Clippers make moves to acquire Paul George, sending a subtle shot at LeBron, making it apparent he wasn't willing to join LeBron's LA Lakers. So the Clippers put together the best package they could at the time, sending Shai to OKC along with Gallinari and 4 first-round draft picks spread out to the 2026 season. So Shai was off to OKC, who at the time had seemed they were preparing to tank after Russ had spent the last 3 seasons averaging triple-doubles only to lose in the first round of the playoffs. So the Thunder decided to cut ties with Russ as well, sending them to the Rockets for a seemed-to-be washed-up Chris Paul, which was great for SGA. As we mentioned, this was one of the players Shai watched while growing up. And in the eyes of Sam Presti, even though the team wasn't expected to be anything more than a fringe playoff contender at best, given only a 0.2% chance of actually making the playoffs, it would ultimately benefit Shai to play with one of the greatest point guards to ever touch the court, despite the stint in Houston that made CP3 appear to just be a disgruntled 34-year-old vet. But Chris Paul quickly went to work silencing those rumors, as he had seemed to be back in full form, making the All-Star team for the first time since 2016. While also helping SGA and the rest of the team shine under his leadership. Now in OKC with more opportunity, Shai's minutes were bumped up from 26 to 35 a game, while also getting a lot more shot opportunities with the help of CP3, with Shai seeing his point average go from 10.8 with the Clippers to 19, now leading the entire Thunder squad that season. Being a major reason for the team going 30-15 in tight games within 5 under 5 minutes to go, making the Thunder the most clutch team for that season. But unfortunately for the Thunder, right as they were hitting their stride, the league was shut down thanks to old reckless Rudy, leaving the Thunder tied for 5th in the West with a record of 40-24. The NBA of course relocated to the bubble, where the OKC Thunder struggled, going 4-4 in the games before the playoffs, where they would come to face the Rockets in a tight first round that would go to an even closer Game 7, that was decided by James Harden making a surprisingly clutch defensive stop on Lou Dort. Despite getting knocked out of the playoffs, SGA had some good outings in that series, and even made the recovery after a botched Chris Paul pass that would find Lou Dort for that final shot attempt. So you could see Shai's development starting to show in that series. That first year in OKC was Shai's last competitive season, as Sam Presti let him cook for a year, but was eager to make use of the many draft picks he was able to store away. So he sent Chris Paul to the Suns and Schroeder to LA, leaving Shai to lead a group of young players that progressively got younger by the season, all while doing this primarily from the bench, as he only managed to suit up for 91 of the possible 164 games in the past 2 seasons. Although the times we have seen him on the court, he's been a highlight machine, finding deeper range and developing as a playmaker, while building on his clutch status. As so far this year, he's knocked down 5 buckets to tie or take the lead in the final second of a game, which puts him tied for most ever in a season, with DeRozan and Kyrie. But the only difference is it took Kyrie 59 games and DeRozan 80 games to hit those 5 buckets, while Shai has managed to do so in only 28 appearances so far this year. Things are really looking up this season as well, as he's only missed 3 games while putting up MVP level numbers, averaging 31, 5, and 6 with 1.7 steals and a block a game, getting his points efficiently too, as he's currently on pace to average the most points per game by a guard on 50% shooting since Michael Jordan. Doing this while also being close to a 50-40-90 player, with 50% from the field, 34 from 3, and a league-leading 93% from the free throw line. Hopefully if this level of play keeps up, he'll finally be named to his first All-Star appearance, as he's top 5 in the league for total points and points per game so far this season, while also being top 10 for PER, win shares, offensive win shares, blocks plus minus, and value over replacement. We've already done a video on the effects of tanking on younger players, which you can check out right up here, but it seems when looking at the analytics, Shai has been able to avoid this. And with the Thunder owning the rights to the Clippers picks that could reap rewards, as the team appears to be struggling to keep their all-star duo healthy and on the court, potentially after the Wemby sweepstakes, we'll finally get to see a return to playoff Shai. If you stayed to the end, give this video a like, and subscribe not to miss another one. And we'll see you on the next upload.